In 1947, the UN voted to recommend the creation of a Jewish state in British Palestine. The Nation of Israel was formed and declared their independence on May 14, 1948. The very next day, on May 15th, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, and Iraq invaded the newly established country. After 9 months of fierce fighting, an armistice was signed ending the war. The war is believed to have been what started Israel's quest to become a nuclear power. Much of the initial nuclear research was done with the help of the French. In the 1950s and early 1960s, France and Israel shared a close relationship. France was Israel's largest arms supplier, Israel fought alongside the French in the Suez Crisis, and Israel served as a counterforce against Egypt in France's fight in Algeria. In 1957, an agreement was signed between the two countries to secretly construct the Negev Nuclear Research Center in Israel. When the facility was discovered by the US, Israel first claimed that it was a manganese plant, then a textile plant, and finally that it was a nuclear reactor used only for peaceful purposes. They first received nuclear material from France. However, after the Six-Day War, France stopped supplying them. Israel was also able to buy uranium oxide from Argentina and South Africa, and heavy water from Norway. Much of the information on the reported Israeli nuclear weapons program came from a man named Mordechai Vanunu. Vanunu worked as a nuclear technician at the Negev nuclear facility. In 1985, he smuggled in a camera and took dozens of photographs inside the facility, and shortly thereafter he quit his job and left the country. He then gave an interview to the Sunday Times, the largest British newspaper, detailing Israel's nuclear program. Shortly after, he met a girl and they went on a trip to Italy together. When they got to the hotel, he discovered that she was actually an Israeli Mossad agent. He was captured and taken back to Israel, where he was charged with treason and aggravated espionage, and sentenced to 18 years imprisonment. Based on Vanunu's interview and other various sources, experts believe that Israel at the time was producing enough material for over 200 nuclear bombs. While there haven't been any confirmed Israeli nuclear tests, it is assumed that their first tests were carried out in cooperation with the French nuclear tests in the 60s. In 1976, the US Vela satellites designed to detect nuclear explosions detected what appeared exactly as a nuclear test would produce. US President Jimmy Carter stated that he believed the event to be an Israeli nuclear test. Many people suspect that the test was an Israeli neutron bomb, which is a small nuclear bomb optimized to release neutron radiation. Neutron radiation, while having a short range, has the ability to pass through all but the most heavily shielded defenses, making it extremely deadly for nearby persons while minimizing actual physical destruction. The Negev nuclear facility, along with other nuclear sites in the country, are very well protected, with special forces on station, surface-to-air missile defenses, and interceptor aircraft ready to scramble to react to any threat. During the Six-Day War, they scrambled to intercept Egyptian MiG-21s that overflew the site. Israel accidentally shot down one of their own Mirage F-1s in 1967 when it flew too close to the facility, and in 1973, they shot down a Libyan civilian aircraft that approached too closely to the site. There have been several reported times where Israel went on high nuclear alert, with weapons ready to be used at a moment's notice. During the Yom Kippur War of 1973, Israel was on the brink of defeat when the Arab coalition led by Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack. The Prime Minister of Israel at the time reportedly ordered nuclear missiles to be readied and nuclear bombs loaded onto the Israeli F-4s, and that they should be used in the event of an impending defeat. Another time was during the Gulf War, when Iraq launched over 36 Scud missiles at Israel. The major fear at the time was the potential use of chemical weapons as warheads on the Scud missiles. In order to stop Israel from retaliating and jeopardizing the Arab coalition fighting against Iraq, the US transferred Patriot surface-to-air missiles to Israel and gave them access to live satellite downlinks to detect future Scud launches. These events and other wars between Israel and their neighbors has led to Israeli citizens to support their nation's possession of nuclear weapons in order to deter any future aggression against them. Israel is believed to currently possess anywhere from 75 to 400 nuclear weapons of all types: fission, fusion, large high-yield, miniature small-yield, and possibly neutron and EMP warheads. They have several methods of delivering these weapons to targets, most notably being the Jericho ballistic missiles. There are three types: the Jericho-1, a short-range missile designed in the 1960s, the Jericho-2, an intermediate-range missile built in the 80s, and the recently built Jericho-3, an intercontinental ballistic missile with the ability to hit almost anywhere in Asia, Africa, and Europe. These missiles are believed to be based at Sadat Mika Air Base, a large facility about 25 kilometers west of Jerusalem. Satellite imagery of the base shows what appears to be ballistic missile silos, weapons storage bunkers, radar sites, and the Arrow ballistic missile defense system. Other suspected delivery systems include gravity bombs, submarine-launched weapons, and also nuclear artillery shells fired from American 203mm artillery pieces. Israel has always been ambiguous about the nuclear issue, never confirming or denying possessing such weapons. Officials tend to make purposefully vague statements whenever the issue is brought up, but the issue is pretty much an open secret, which is exactly the way they want it. This way, their potential enemies know what they're capable of, without having to actually admit to having them, and dealing with the consequences and international pressure that comes with being a nuclear power. There are some people who suggest that Israel might not even have nuclear weapons, and that the whole thing is a bluff in order to dissuade any potential attacker. This, however, is very likely untrue. According to ICANN, Israel spends about $2 billion a year on their nuclear program, and regardless of whether they actually have nuclear weapons, their enemies think they do, which is arguably the most important fact for Israel.